And welcome to Hannity. Our hearts, they are heavy and they are troubled tonight after a horrific shooting in Minneapolis this morning after a shooter opened fire on a Catholic elementary school while children were attending a mass to celebrate the start of the school year. Now, according to police, the shooter was dressed in black, wearing a mask, and shot through stained glass windows. Multiple children are now dead, and police say that the shooter took his own life. The FBI Director, Kash Patel, announcing on X this afternoon the suspect has been identified as Robin Westman, a male born as Robert Westman, and that the FBI is now investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism targeting Catholics. Shortly thereafter, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed more disturbing details about the suspected shooter, saying he was a man claiming to be transgender and revealing that he had writings on his rifle magazines that read, quote, "For the children, where is your God?" and "Kill Donald Trump." Now, following the horrific shooting, President Trump did post on Truth Social saying that he has been briefed on the shooting, asked everyone to join him in praying for the victims. Now, the White House later issued a proclamation honoring the victims, ordering flags to be flown at half-staff at all government facilities all across the country and U.S. outposts across the world until sunset on Sunday. But this horrific act of violence during the first week of school only underscores the need for more law and order and safety and security all around the country. This is something that we have been debating for weeks, something that President Trump now has put in the forefront of his agenda over the past several weeks, with a lot of opposition on the left, sending in the National Guard troop, for example, to clean up crime in D.C. Think of this. You know, our capital, Washington, D.C., of all the capitals around the world, we're #1 in terms of the homicide rate. And that means of any other country on earth. How could that happen? Also, the president warning other blue cities that he may do the same there to keep people safe and secure. How do you pursue happiness? It is a prerequisite for happiness to have law and order and safety and security. But once again, Democrats, they can't help themselves, wasting zero time, rushing to judgment and politicizing this tragedy before even having the full story. Former Biden White House press secretary, Circleback Jen Psaki, trying to pin the blame on Donald Trump with a bizarre tweet citing his efforts to crack down on crime in D.C., which, by the way, for the record, Circleback, he has been enormously successful in doing. She wrote, quote, "When kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic school mass and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around D.C., maybe rethink your strategy." No, they've been stopping the murder rate, the homicide. We went 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks without a single murder. They usually have 3.6 a week. Maybe somebody at MSDNC can open a book, learn something about AI, do a little bit of research instead of just peddling lies and conspiracy theories. What about the dozens of the school shootings that have taken place, by the way, when Circleback Psaki was press secretary? Did Biden do anything to prevent those? And then, of course, you got, Gavin Nutty Newsom. Can't help himself, posting on X, as he's been doing nonstop for the last several weeks now, writing, quote, "We can't even make it through the first week of school without mass shootings, and the GOP will continue to do absolutely nothing while our kids are being gunned down. This is sick." Wait a minute. These are the same people that supported 12 to 20 million, we don't know the actual number, unvetted illegal immigrants from over 200 countries, the people that they let into our country, known terrorists, and then harbored them with their sanctuary city and state policies like out in the United Socialist Utopia of California, spending tens and tens of billions of dollars on illegal immigrants for health care, education, criminal justice. Look at who they are. These are the same people that have been protecting these people from the police and trying to stand in the way of ICE agents doing their job. The same people that support defund, dismantle, no bail. Let's reimagine the police madness and send in social workers. The same people that, have turned this guy, alleged MS-13 gang member and alleged wife beater, his own wife, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they are his biggest champion. This is the party of Abrego Garcia. The same people fighting against deportation, the same people fighting for amnesty, the same people fighting against Donald Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again. Now, they weren't the only two, by the way. More Democrats, more allies in the legacy media mob took to the airwaves today, of course, to politicize this tragedy in a disgusting but yet predictable way, mocking people offering their prayers because the shooting happened in a church. Take a look.
All the work we've done to ban these automatic rifles and to do something when it comes to the background checks and everything, and we keep getting thwarted.
And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
He's expressing something that I know you feel and most people feel, which is a combination of sadness, but raw rage. Forget about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when they were murdered through a church window.
It's unbelievable.
So as Democrats, is there any sense that they can take a moment, a horrific moment like this, kids sitting in pews, literally getting shot to death, and try to do something to help it from stopping again, particularly as it comes to assault weapons?
So I wouldn't expect a lot to change here. I think we see this pattern.
This is madness. This is insane. They are the party of defund, dismantle, no bail laws, reimagine the police. They are the party of sanctuary states and cities and amnesty. And here's the saddest part. School shootings are preventable. And simple, basic, common sense actions can mitigate these tragedies. If we have the desire to stop school shootings, this is the first thing you should do. Every school in the country should have a metal detector. You have them at airports. You have them when you're around elected politicians. By the way, they have armed guards around them. You have to control the entry of kids and the perimeter around every school. And by the way I would do it, I would hire retired military, trained, law enforcement, retired, with concealed carries. They should be in every school in the country, along with metal detectors, along with a secure perimeter. Now, for these people that you hire, you could even do it and not pay them. What do you mean? Hannity, everyone's going to work for free? No, offer them tax incentives if they are willing to volunteer a certain number of hours a week. I believe these common sense practices would help mitigate these horrific shootings, probably put an end to it. And by the way, that means they pay no local taxes, no state taxes, no federal taxes. And if they put in enough hours, how about no estate tax if they pass away and they get to do what they want with the money that they've already paid taxes on? And, the left's rush to immediately blame Republicans, race to blame guns for every tragedy. It's sad, and pathetic, but it's predictable. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.